Welcome to today's episode of Ancient Mysteries Revealed. Picture this. You've been told your entire life that civilization began 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. You learned that the Sumerians were humanity's first urban dwellers, the inventors of writing, the wheel, and organized society. But what if everything you were taught was incomplete? Deep beneath the Turkish hills of Göbekli Tepe, massive stone pillars carved with intricate animals stand silent, yet they predate Stonehenge by 6,000 years. In the Jordan Valley, the ancient walls of Jericho have been protecting inhabitants for 11,000 years, making it older than the pyramids of Egypt by millennia. Across the Indus Valley, sophisticated cities with advanced drainage systems flourished when Mesopotamia was still scattered villages. These aren't just archaeological curiosities. They're revolutionary discoveries that shatter our understanding of human civilization. We're not talking about primitive settlements or simple farming communities. These forgotten civilizations had complex social structures, advanced technology, international trade networks, and artistic achievements that rival anything from the so-called cradles of civilization. For over a century, historians have proclaimed Mesopotamia as humanity's first civilization. But new evidence suggests that organized, sophisticated societies existed thousands of years earlier. Civilizations so advanced they built megalithic temples, planned cities, and created art that still mystifies us today. Why were these earlier civilizations forgotten? How did they disappear from our history books? And what do their achievements tell us about the true timeline of human progress? Join me on a journey through time as we uncover the forgotten first civilizations, the ones that came before Mesopotamia, before Egypt, before everything you thought you knew about the dawn of human society. Prepare to question everything you learned about the beginnings of civilization. Chapter 1. The Temple that Rewrote History. The morning sun casts long shadows across the barren hills of southeastern Turkey, illuminating a discovery that has fundamentally changed our understanding of human civilization. Here, at a site called Göbekli Tepe, Potbelly Hill, and Turkish archaeologists have unearthed what may be humanity's first temple, predating Stonehenge by an astounding 6,000 years. You're standing where hunter-gatherers 11,500 years ago somehow managed to quarry, transport, and erect massive limestone pillars, some weighing up to 50 tons. These aren't crude stone arrangements. They're sophisticated architectural marvels decorated with intricate carvings of lions, foxes, wild boars, and mysterious abstract symbols. The precision and artistry would be impressive even by today's standards. When German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt first examined this site in 1994, he immediately recognized something extraordinary. The local villagers had always known about the strange stones jutting from the hilltop, but previous surveys had dismissed them as medieval grave markers. Schmidt saw something different: the unmistakable tops of prehistoric megaliths buried beneath millennia of accumulated soil. What Schmidt's team uncovered challenges every assumption about our ancestors. Traditional archaeology taught us that complex religious structures required settled agricultural societies with established social hierarchies. Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite, that the desire to build monumental religious architecture may have actually driven the development of agriculture and permanent settlements. Think about the logistics involved. Each massive tush-shaped pillar required skilled stonemasons to quarry the limestone from bedrock pits located 100 meters away. Using only flint tools, workers carefully shaped these monuments, some standing 18 feet tall. The transportation alone would have required dozens of people and sophisticated organizational planning. But the true genius lies in the site's overall design. Recent research using computer modeling has revealed that the structures were built according to precise geometric patterns. The three main enclosures align in an equilateral triangle, suggesting the builders used advanced mathematical concepts to plan the entire complex before construction began. This wasn't random building. It was calculated architectural design. The carvings tell their own story. Each circular enclosure features different dominant animals. Snakes in Building A, foxes in Building B, wild boars in Building C, and birds in Building D. These weren't decorative choices. They likely represented different groups or clans who participated in the construction, each contributing their totemic symbols to this shared sacred space. What's most remarkable is what's missing from Göbekli Tepe. Despite decades of excavation, archaeologists have found no evidence of permanent habitation. No cooking hearths, no trash pits, no residential structures. This was purely a ceremonial center, a place where scattered hunter-gatherer groups would gather for religious rituals and communal feasts. The scale of organization required is staggering. Estimates suggest that moving and erecting just one pillar would have required 500 people working for several days. The entire complex would have demanded coordination among multiple groups over decades or even centuries. This level of cooperation existed thousands of years before we thought humans were capable of such organization. But perhaps the most intriguing mystery is why Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried. Around 8000 BCE, the builders carefully covered the entire complex with tons of soil, preserving it perfectly for modern archaeologists. This wasn't abandonment, it was intentional ritual burial, suggesting the site's sacred purpose had been fulfilled or that changing beliefs required its concealment. The implications ripple through everything we know about human development. If hunter-gatherers could organize such massive construction projects 11,500 years ago, what other assumptions about prehistoric capabilities need revision? The site suggests this complex religious thought, artistic expression, and social organization existed thousands of years before the rise of agriculture. Göbekli Tepe also hints at advanced astronomical knowledge. The pillar's orientation aligns with certain celestial events, and the animal carvings may represent constellations. This suggests that the builders possessed sophisticated understanding of seasonal cycles and stellar movements, knowledge crucial for managing large-scale construction projects and coordinating gatherings among dispersed groups. The site continues to yield surprises. Ground-penetrating radar has identified at least 16 additional enclosures still buried across the 22-acre site. Current excavations have uncovered less than 5% of the total complex. Who knows what additional revelations await beneath the Turkish soil? This temple complex fundamentally challenges the narrative that civilization began with agriculture in Mesopotamia. Instead, it suggests that the drive to create sacred spaces and gather in religious communities may have been the catalyst that led to settled life, agricultural development, and eventually to the cities we recognize as the first civilizations. As we stand among these ancient pillars carved by hands that lived more than 11,000 years ago, we are forced to confront a humbling truth. Our ancestors were far more sophisticated than we ever imagined, and the story of human civilization is far older and more complex than our textbooks taught us. Chapter 2. The first city that never had streets. Imagine a city where you enter your home through a hole in the roof, where streets don't exist, and where neighbors share walls while maintaining complete privacy. Welcome to Çatalhöyük, the world's first attempt at urban living, established 9,000 years ago in what is now central Turkey. From above, this ancient settlement looks like a massive honeycomb. Nearly 2,000 mud brick houses packed together so tightly that the rooftops formed the city's transportation network. Residents climbed down ladders through ceiling openings to enter their homes, then removed the ladders for security. It was an architectural solution, both practical and revolutionary. Çatalhöyük wasn't just large, it was enormous for its time. Spreading across 34 acres, it housed between 6,000 and 8,000 people, when most human groups consisted of a few dozen individuals. For nearly 2,000 years, from 7100 BCE to 5700 BCE, this proto-city thrived as humanity's first experiment in dense urban living. The absence of streets wasn't an oversight. It was intentional design. Without ground-level passages between buildings, the city was virtually impregnable. Enemies couldn't march through streets that didn't exist. Raiders couldn't easily navigate between buildings. The rooftop network provided both transportation and defense, while removable ladders offered individual household security. But what makes Çatalhöyük truly remarkable is what it reveals about early urban society. Unlike later cities with clear social hierarchies, Çatalhöyük appears to have been remarkably egalitarian. Houses were uniformly sized, with no obvious palaces or elite residences. No monumental buildings, no grand temples, no apparent centers of political power. This was urban living without the urban elite. Inside these homes, daily life centered around sophisticated domestic arrangements. Each house featured a main room with sleeping platforms built along the walls, hearths for cooking and warmth, and ovens for baking bread. Storage areas held grain, tools, and personal possessions. But perhaps most strikingly, many homes contained something unprecedented: art galleries. The walls of Çatalhöyük houses were canvases for humanity's earliest urban art. Vibrant murals depicted hunting scenes, geometric patterns, and what may be the world's oldest landscape painting, a volcanic eruption of nearby Hazan Dağ Mountain. These weren't simple decorations. They were sophisticated artistic expressions that required planning, skill, and community appreciation for aesthetic beauty. One of the most famous murals appears to show a town plan beneath a volcanic eruption, possibly representing Çatalhöyük itself. If confirmed, this would be humanity's first map of bird's-eye view conceptualization that demonstrates advanced spatial thinking. The spotted pattern above represents the volcanic ash cloud, while rectangular shapes below suggest the city's layout. The residents weren't just artists, they were pioneers of early technology. They crafted mirrors from polished obsidian, created sophisticated pottery, and developed advanced weaving techniques. The obsidian came from volcanoes 80 miles away, indicating long-distance trade networks. Shells found in houses originated from the Mediterranean and Red Seas, proving these early urbanites engaged in international commerce. But perhaps the most unusual aspect of Çatalhöyük was how residents dealt with death. They buried their ancestors directly beneath their homes, under sleeping platforms, and in storage areas. Families literally lived above their dead relatives, maintaining physical connections across generations. Bodies were often defleshed before burial, suggesting complex mortuary rituals that may have involved temporary exposure to birds of prey. The burial practices reveal fascinating insights into early urban social structures. Some houses contain many more burials than others, suggesting these were history houses, buildings that served as community memory centers. These structures featured more elaborate decorations, including installations of bullhorns and other symbolic elements, but their residents didn't appear to have greater wealth or political power. Food production at Çatalhöyük was surprisingly sophisticated. Residents cultivated wheat and barley, raised sheep and goats, and hunted wild animals. But they also processed dairy products, some of the earliest evidence of milk consumption by adult humans. Recent analysis of pottery residues revealed traces of milk proteins, suggesting these early urbanites had developed techniques for making dairy products digestible to lactose-intolerant adults. The city's environmental management was remarkably advanced. Residents maintained extremely clean living spaces, disposing of garbage in designated areas outside the settlement. Human waste was carefully managed through sophisticated systems that kept living areas sanitary. This level of public health planning demonstrates organizational capabilities far beyond what we might expect from such early urban dwellers. Climate played a crucial role in Çatalhöyük's success and eventual decline. The settlement was established during a period of favorable climate when the surrounding area was wetland rich in resources. As the climate gradually became drier over the centuries, residents had to travel farther for resources. Archaeological evidence shows increased signs of violence in later periods, possibly due to resource competition. The city's unique architecture created unprecedented social dynamics. Without streets, chance encounters between neighbors were limited. Privacy was paramount. Houses opened only to interior courtyards, never to shared public spaces. This suggests early urbanites were still learning how to live closely together while maintaining individual family autonomy. Trade networks connected Çatalhöyük to distant regions. Cowrie shells from the Red Sea, flint from Syria, and other exotic materials found in houses prove these early urbanites weren't isolated. They participated in extensive trade networks that connected Anatolia to the broader Middle East, demonstrating that globalization's roots stretch back 9,000 years. The city's eventual abandonment around 5700 BCE coincided with significant climate change and possible social upheaval. As resources became scarcer and social tensions increased, the unique urban experiment of Çatalhöyük couldn't sustain itself. Residents gradually dispersed to smaller settlements, but their architectural innovations and urban living concepts would influence city development for millennia. Çatalhöyük challenges our assumptions about early urban life. It demonstrates that humans were experimenting with city living thousands of years before Mesopotamian cities, and that these experiments took radically different forms than later urban development. The absence of obvious hierarchy suggests alternative models of social organization that we're only beginning to understand. As excavations continue, Çatalhöyük keeps revealing new insights about humanity's first attempts at urban living. It reminds us that the path to civilization wasn't linear or uniform, it was experimental, diverse, and far more ancient than we previously imagined. Chapter 3. The Walls That Time Forgot. In the scorching heat of the Jordan Valley, where temperatures can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit, stands a testament to human ingenuity that has endured for over 11,000 years. Jericho, often called the world's oldest continuously inhabited city, guards secrets that predate the pyramids of Egypt by 6,000 years and challenge everything we thought we knew about early urban development. You're looking at more than just ancient walls. You're witnessing humanity's first experiment in permanent fortification, urban planning, and the organizational capabilities that would eventually give rise to civilization itself. The massive stone wall that once encircled ancient Jericho wasn't just impressive for its time. It remains an engineering marvel by any standard. The story begins around 9000 BCE, when the first permanent settlers arrived at this oasis in the desert. What drew them wasn't just the abundant freshwater springs that still flow today, but the strategic location along ancient trade routes connecting Africa, Asia, and the Mediterranean. From its earliest days, Jericho was a crossroads of human migration and commerce. But it's the archaeological layers beneath modern Jericho that tell the most remarkable story. British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon's excavations in the 1950s revealed more than 20 successive settlement layers, creating a timeline of continuous human habitation that stretches back to the dawn of the Holocene epoch. Each layer represents generations of people who chose this spot to build their lives, rebuild after disasters, and pass on their community to their children. The most spectacular discovery was the massive defensive wall built around 8000 BCE. This wasn't a simple barrier. It was a sophisticated defensive system constructed from huge stone blocks, standing over 12 feet high and 6 feet wide at the base. The wall enclosed an area of nearly 10 acres, protecting a population estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 people, enormous for its time. But the wall was just the beginning. Rising from behind, it stood an enormous stone tower over 28 feet high, containing an internal spiral staircase with 22 stone steps. This tower, one of the oldest architectural monuments ever discovered, required the coordinated labor of hundreds of workers over many months. The organizational capabilities implied by its construction suggest social structures far more complex than anything previously attributed to pre-agricultural societies. Recent archaeological analysis has revealed even more sophisticated planning. The wall wasn't just built for defense against human enemies. It may have served as a flood control system. The tower's positioning suggests it was designed to channel and control the seasonal floods that still threaten the Jordan Valley. This dual-purpose engineering demonstrates a level of environmental planning that we associate with much later civilizations. The construction techniques used at Jericho were remarkably advanced. Workers quarried limestone blocks from local sources, shaped them with stone tools, and fitted them together without mortar. The precision of the stonework rivals that of much later civilizations, suggesting that sophisticated masonry techniques developed thousands of years earlier than previously thought. Inside the walls, Jericho's residents pioneered urban living. Houses were built of sun-dried mud bricks, arranged in neighborhoods connected by narrow streets. Each home had multiple rooms, storage areas, and courtyards. The standardized brick sizes and consistent building techniques suggest centralized planning and possibly specialized craftsmen, early evidence of division of labor in urban settings. The residents of early Jericho weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Archaeological evidence reveals a diverse economy based on agriculture, herding, hunting, and long-distance trade. They cultivated some of the world's earliest domesticated wheat and barley, using sophisticated irrigation techniques to maximize yields in the arid environment. Trade connections stretched across the ancient world. Obsidian tools from Anatolian volcanoes, shells from the Mediterranean, and other exotic materials prove that Jericho was connected to trade networks spanning thousands of miles. These weren't occasional contacts, but regular commercial relationships that brought prosperity to the oasis city. But perhaps most remarkable was Jericho's role in the development of agriculture. The site provides some of the earliest evidence of the transition from hunting and gathering to farming. Residents experimented with crop cultivation, animal domestication, and food storage techniques that would eventually spread throughout the ancient world. Jericho wasn't just witnessing the agricultural revolution, it was helping to create it. The city's religious life was equally sophisticated. Archaeologists have discovered shrine rooms decorated with painted frescoes, ritual objects, and evidence of ceremonial feasts. But most striking were the plastered skulls, human skulls covered with plaster and painted to recreate facial features, possibly representing ancestor veneration practices. These haunting artifacts suggest complex spiritual beliefs centered on maintaining connections with the dead. Jericho's strategic importance made it a target for conquest throughout history, but also ensured its survival. The city's location controlled access to the Jordan Valley and the routes between Mesopotamia and Egypt. Every major ancient power, from the Egyptians to the Babylonians to the Romans, recognized Jericho's strategic value. The biblical account of Joshua's conquest, while historically debated, reflects Jericho's reputation as a formidable fortress. Archaeological evidence confirms that the city was indeed destroyed and rebuilt multiple times throughout its history, with each generation learning from their predecessors' defensive strategies. Climate change played a crucial role in Jericho's long history. During wet periods, the surrounding area was lush and green, supporting large populations and extensive agriculture. During dry periods, the city contracted but survived thanks to its permanent springs. This resilience in the face of climate variability helped ensure Jericho's survival when other early cities were abandoned. The city's water management systems were incredibly sophisticated. Residents built elaborate channels and reservoirs to capture and store water from the springs. These systems, some of which are still visible today, demonstrate engineering knowledge that wouldn't be surpassed for thousands of years. Modern Jericho, now home to about 20,000 people, sits atop this incredible archaeological treasure. The ancient tell of Tel A Sultan, rising 70 feet above the surrounding plain, represents over 11,000 years of continuous human habitation. In 2023, UNESCO recognized this site as a World Heritage Site, acknowledging its unique importance to human history. Recent excavations continue to yield new discoveries. Advanced dating techniques are pushing back the timeline of human settlement even further, while new analytical methods are revealing details about daily life, diet, and social organization that were invisible to earlier archaeologists. The Tower of Jericho, still standing after more than 10,000 years, serves as a powerful symbol of human ambition and organizational capability. Its builders couldn't have known they were creating one of archaeology's most important monuments. But their achievement reminds us that the drive to build, to organize, and to create lasting structures is fundamental to human nature. Jericho's story continues today, as archaeologists work to uncover more of its secrets, while modern residents carry on the tradition of oasis life that began over 11,000 years ago. The city that gave us our first walls, our first tower, and some of our first experiments in urban living remains a living testament to human adaptability and ingenuity. As you stand before the ancient walls of Jericho, you're not just looking at archaeological ruins, you're witnessing the birthplace of urban civilization, the laboratory where humans first learned to live together in large, permanent communities, and the proving ground for technologies and social organizations that would eventually spread across the world. Chapter 4. The Lost Cities of the Indus. Along the banks of the Indus River, in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, lay the ruins of what was once the world's most extensive ancient civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, covered over 1.5 million square kilometers, larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, and supported a population of over 5 million people at its peak around 2600 BC. But recent archaeological discoveries are rewriting the timeline entirely. New evidence suggests this sophisticated civilization began not 400 or 500 years ago as previously thought, but possibly as early as 80 years ago, making it older than both Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations and placing it among the true pioneers of urban living. You're standing in what was once Harappa, one of the civilization's major cities, trying to comprehend the scale of human achievement that once thrived here. Unlike the monuments and temples that define other ancient civilizations, what made the Indus Valley remarkable was its focus on practical urban planning and quality of life for ordinary citizens. The cities of Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dhalavera, and dozens of other settlements shared a remarkable consistency in planning and construction. Every major city was built according to a grid system, with straight streets running north-south and east-west. The main streets were wide enough for wheeled vehicles, while smaller lanes provided access to residential areas. This standardized urban planning suggests centralized authority and coordinated development across hundreds of miles. What strikes you most about these ancient cities is their advanced infrastructure. Every house had private wells and bathrooms with sophisticated drainage systems. Wastewater from homes flowed through covered drains that ran beneath the streets, eventually reaching main sewers that carried waste outside the city. This level of urban sanitation wouldn't be matched in many parts of the world until the 19th century. The famous Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro exemplifies Harappan engineering sophistication. This massive public water tank, measuring 39 feet by 23 feet and 8 feet deep, was waterproofed with bitumen and fed by wells. The precise construction and advanced waterproofing suggest both the technical skill to build such structures and the social organization to maintain them as public facilities. But it's the ordinary houses that truly reveal the civilization's character. Unlike other ancient societies where elites lived in palaces while commoners crowded into hovels, Harappan cities show remarkable equality in housing quality. Houses were built of standardized fire bricks, had multiple rooms, private courtyards, and individual water and sewage connections. The similarity in house sizes suggests a society with relatively little wealth disparity. The standardization extended beyond architecture to weights, measures, and even bricks. Harappan bricks maintained consistent ratios of 4 to 2 to 1, length, width, height, across the entire civilization. Weights and measures were uniform from city to city, facilitating trade across the vast territory. This standardization required sophisticated administrative systems and suggests a level of bureaucratic organization that rivals modern states. Trade was the lifeblood of Harappan civilization. Archaeological evidence reveals extensive networks connecting the Indus Valley to Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and the Arabian Peninsula. Harappan seals, square steatite stamps with intricate animal designs, and undeciphered script have been found in Mesopotamian cities, proving active commercial relationships. These traders dealt in cotton textiles, ivory, precious stones, and the finest crafts of their time. The craftsmanship achieved by Harappan artisans was extraordinary. They created jewelry with microscopic beads, bronze sculptures of remarkable artistic sophistication, and cotton textiles so fine that the Greeks called the fabric woven wind. The famous bronze dancing girl of Mohenjo-Daro, with her naturalistic pose and confident expression, demonstrates artistic achievement that wouldn't be surpassed for centuries. But perhaps most intriguingly, the Harappans developed one of the world's earliest writing systems, preserved on thousands of seals and pottery fragments. Unfortunately, this script remains undeciphered, leaving the Harappan language and much of their culture mysterious. The brief inscriptions, typically just 3 to 5 symbols, have resisted all attempts at translation, keeping Harappan thoughts and beliefs locked away from modern understanding. Recent excavations at sites like Rakhigarhi in India are revealing the true antiquity of this civilization. Optically stimulated luminescence dating of pottery fragments suggests human settlement in the Indus region began as early as 8000 BCE, with urban development occurring much earlier than previously thought. If confirmed, these dates would make Harappan civilization contemporary with, or even older than, the earliest Mesopotamian settlements. The agricultural foundation of Harappan civilization was remarkably sophisticated. Farmers cultivated wheat, barley, peas, sesame, and dates, and were among the first to grow cotton. They developed advanced irrigation systems, including sophisticated water harvesting techniques that allowed agriculture in semi-arid regions. Storage facilities in cities could hold grain surpluses that supported large urban populations and enabled long-distance trade. Animal domestication was equally advanced. Harappans raised cattle, water buffalo, goats, sheep, and chickens. They may have been among the first to domesticate cats and use elephants for transportation. The famous unicorn seals might actually depict a breed of cattle that has since disappeared, showing how much we still don't understand about their animal husbandry practices. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Around 1900 BCE, the great cities began to decline. Urban planning deteriorated, and the standardized systems that had unified the civilization broke down. Theories for this collapse include climate change, river changes, natural disasters, invasion, or internal social upheaval. The truth probably involves multiple factors working together. Recent climate research suggests that changing monsoon patterns gradually reduced the water supply to Indus cities. The Saraswati River, which supported many settlements, may have dried up due to tectonic activity. As agricultural yields declined and trade networks collapsed, the urban centers became unsustainable. But the people didn't disappear. Recent genetic studies suggest that Harappan populations mixed with incoming groups and their descendants still live in the region today. Elements of Harappan culture, including urban planning concepts, craft techniques, and possibly religious practices may have survived in later South Asian civilizations. The sophisticated urban planning of Harappan cities influenced later development throughout the region. The concept of grid-planned cities with advanced drainage systems appears in later Indian urban development. Some scholars argue that certain Hindu religious practices and symbols have Harappan origins, though this remains debated due to the undeciphered script. Modern archaeology continues to reveal new Harappan sites across a vast area stretching from Afghanistan to Gujarat. Each discovery adds pieces to our understanding of this remarkable civilization. Advanced techniques like satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar are identifying hundreds of previously unknown settlements, suggesting the civilization was even larger and more complex than we realized. The contrast between Harappan and Mesopotamian civilizations is striking. While Mesopotamian cities were dominated by temples and palaces, showcasing the power of gods and kings, Harappan cities prioritize practical amenities for ordinary citizens. There are no obvious temples, palaces, or monuments to individual rulers. This suggests a very different social organization, possibly more egalitarian or organized around different principles of authority. Recent discoveries at Dhalavira have revealed sophisticated water management on an unprecedented scale. The entire city was designed around water conservation, with elaborate systems of dams, reservoirs, and channels that collected and stored every drop of precious rainfall. The engineering sophistication rivals that of much later civilizations and demonstrates remarkable adaptation to challenging environmental conditions. The Harappan achievement becomes even more impressive when considering the challenges they overcame. Building sophisticated cities in a semi-arid environment required innovative solutions for water supply, food production, and waste management. Their success in creating sustainable urban environments offers lessons that remain relevant today. As archaeological work continues across the Indus region, we're gradually reconstructing the story of humanity's largest and possibly oldest urban civilization. Each discovery challenges assumptions about the development of human society and reminds us that the path to civilization was neither uniform nor predictable. The Indus Valley civilization stands as proof that human ingenuity and social organization reached remarkable heights thousands of years earlier than we previously believed possible. Chapter 5. The Circle Builders of Ukraine. Hidden beneath the fertile black soil of Ukraine lies evidence of what may be the world's oldest city settlements that predate even the earliest Mesopotamian urban centers by over 1,000 years. The Cucuteni Tripilia culture, flourishing between 5,500 and 2,750 BCE, created massive settlements arranged in perfect circles, challenging everything we thought we knew about early urban development. You're looking at aerial photographs of Nebelivka, Taljanki, and Maidanetsky, three archaeological sites that have revolutionized our understanding of prehistoric Europe. From above, the ancient settlement patterns are unmistakable. Concentric rings of structures arranged with mathematical precision, suggesting a level of urban planning that wasn't supposed to exist 7,000 years ago. The discovery of these massive settlements began almost by accident. In 1971, Ukrainian scientists using geomagnetic surveys to map archaeological sites detected unusual patterns in the Earth's magnetic field near the village of Taljanki. What they found was astounding. The remains of a settlement covering over 1,000 acres, with evidence of hundreds of structures arranged in concentric circles. The scale of these settlements defies everything archaeologists thought they knew about Neolithic Europe. Taljanki alone may have housed between 10,000 and 15,000 people, making it larger than many medieval cities. In the depths of limestone caves scattered across Europe, Africa, and Australia, humanity's earliest artists left behind evidence of cognitive sophistication that challenges every assumption about prehistoric mental capabilities. These weren't crude drawings by primitive minds. They were sophisticated artistic traditions that demonstrate advanced symbolic thinking, cultural transmission, and creative expression that rivals anything produced by later civilizations. You're standing in the Çatalhöyük cave in southern France, surrounded by art that dates back over 36,000 years. The images surrounding you, charging rhinoceros, leaping horses, prowling lions, display artistic techniques that wouldn't be surpassed for thousands of years. The use of natural cave contours to create three-dimensional effects, the sophisticated understanding of perspective and proportion, and the masterful use of shading and color demonstrate artistic abilities that demolish stereotypes about cavemen. But these cave paintings represent just one aspect of a cognitive revolution that began much earlier than previously recognized. Recent archaeological discoveries have pushed back the timeline of symbolic behavior, artistic expression, and abstract thinking by tens of thousands of years. The evidence suggests that modern human cognitive capabilities developed much earlier and more rapidly than traditional models of human evolution predicted. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have discovered evidence of symbolic behavior dating back 100,000 years. Perforated shells used as beads, ochre fragments engraved with geometric patterns, and sophisticated tool-making techniques reveal cognitive capabilities that were thought to be unique to much later periods. These discoveries suggest that the capacity for symbolic thinking, the foundation of all later human achievement, developed much earlier than previously believed. The Blombos Cave discoveries represent a watershed moment in understanding human cognitive evolution. The ochre fragments contain abstract geometric patterns that required planning and symbolic thinking to create. The perforated shells were clearly used as personal ornaments, demonstrating aesthetic sensibilities and possibly social signaling systems. Most remarkably, these behaviors appear suddenly in the archaeological record, suggesting rapid cognitive evolution rather than gradual development. Recent analysis of the Blombos materials using advanced microscopy has revealed even greater sophistication than initially recognized. The geometric patterns on ochre fragments follow mathematical principles of symmetry and proportion. The perforation techniques used on shells demonstrate understanding of material science and tool use. The consistency of patterns across multiple artifacts suggests standardized, symbolic systems that could be taught and transmitted. The artistic traditions found in caves across the world were an isolated phenomena, but part of sophisticated cultural systems that transmitted knowledge across generations. The consistency of artistic techniques across thousands of years suggests formal teaching methods, standardized symbolic systems, and cultural institutions dedicated to preserving and transmitting artistic knowledge. Archaeological evidence from multiple cave art sites reveals the complexity of Paleolithic artistic education systems. Different levels of artistic skill are evident in the same caves, from crude beginners' attempts to masterful finished works. Hand stencils of different sizes suggest that children were introduced to artistic techniques at young ages. The positioning of artwork in caves suggests specific areas were designated for teaching and practice. Recent analysis of Paleolithic art has revealed sophisticated mathematical concepts embedded in seemingly simple designs. The geometric patterns found in caves like Altamira and Lascaux demonstrate understanding of proportion, symmetry, and complex numerical relationships. These aren't random decorations, but carefully planned compositions that required advanced mathematical thinking. Computer analysis of cave art patterns has revealed consistent use of mathematical principles across different sites and time periods. The golden ratio appears in many artistic compositions, suggesting understanding of aesthetic proportions that wouldn't be formalized in Western mathematics for thousands of years. Fractal patterns and geometric progressions demonstrate mathematical thinking that rivals modern artistic understanding. The pigments used by Paleolithic artists required sophisticated chemistry knowledge that, demonstrates understanding of material science and chemical processes. Creating stable, vibrant colors from mineral sources involved complex processing techniques. Heating ochres to specific temperatures to achieve different hues, mixing pigments with binding agents to ensure longevity, and developing application techniques that allowed for fine detail and subtle gradations. Recent chemical analysis of Paleolithic pigments has revealed remarkable sophistication in prehistoric chemistry. Artists developed recipes for different colors that required precise temperature control and chemical mixing. They understood how different minerals reacted to heat and could predict color changes, resulting from specific processing techniques. Some pigments required multi-step processes that took days to complete. Archaeological evidence suggests that Paleolithic artists used sophisticated tools and techniques that demonstrate advanced technological capabilities. Blowpipes for creating stenciled handprints, brushes made from animal hair, and engraving tools capable of creating fine detail all required specialized manufacturing knowledge and careful material selection. The toolkits used by Paleolithic artists were remarkably specialized and demonstrate understanding of different artistic applications. Different brush types were created for different painting techniques. Engraving tools were designed for specific line weights and textures. Blowpipes were calibrated for different spray patterns. This specialization suggests artistic traditions with formal tool-making protocols and technical standards. The subject matter of Paleolithic art reveals sophisticated understanding of animal behavior, seasonal patterns, and ecological relationships. The accuracy of animal depictions demonstrates careful observation and detailed knowledge of species that were crucial for survival. But beyond mere documentation, these images show artistic interpretation and creative expression that goes far beyond utilitarian recording. Recent ethological studies of animals depicted in cave art have confirmed the accuracy of Paleolithic observations. Artists captured behavioral details that are difficult to observe in the wild, suggesting extended periods of careful study. They depicted seasonal changes in animal appearance, social behaviors, and ecological relationships that demonstrate deep understanding of natural systems. Recent discoveries have revealed that Paleolithic art wasn't confined to caves, but extended to open-air sites. Portable objects and personal ornamentation, carved bone and antler objects, decorated tools, and elaborate jewelry demonstrate that artistic expression permeated all aspects of Paleolithic life. This wasn't occasional decoration, but systematic integration of art into daily activities. The portable art objects created by Paleolithic peoples demonstrate remarkable artistic sophistication and suggest that aesthetic expression was central to daily life. Carved figurines show understanding of human and animal anatomy. Decorated tools combine functional and aesthetic considerations. Personal ornaments demonstrate individual artistic expression and possibly social identity markers. The cognitive implications of Paleolithic art are profound and demonstrate capabilities previously thought to be unique to much later periods. Creating representational images requires the ability to form mental representations of absent objects, manipulate abstract concepts, and communicate complex ideas through symbolic systems. These capabilities demonstrate that Paleolithic humans possessed essentially modern cognitive abilities tens of thousands of years earlier than previously recognized. Neuroscience research has revealed that creating representational art requires activation of multiple brain regions simultaneously. The ability to translate three-dimensional observations into two-dimensional representations involves complex neural processing that demonstrates advanced cognitive capabilities. The consistency and sophistication of Paleolithic art suggests that these neural systems were fully developed tens of thousands of years ago. Musical traditions developed alongside visual arts, with archaeological evidence of sophisticated musical instruments dating back over 40,000 years. Bone flutes from German caves demonstrate advanced understanding of acoustics, precise manufacturing techniques, and musical scales that suggest complex musical traditions. These weren't simple noisemakers, but carefully crafted instruments capable of producing sophisticated melodies. Recent acoustic analysis of Paleolithic musical instruments has revealed remarkable sophistication in prehistoric music making. The bone flutes produce accurate musical scales and can create complex harmonies. Some instruments show evidence of repair and modification, suggesting they were valued possessions maintained over extended periods. The acoustic properties of caves where instruments were found suggest they were selected specifically for their sound qualities. The social organization required for maintaining artistic traditions was remarkable and demonstrates cultural complexity that rivals later civilizations. Master artists had to train apprentices, communities had to support non-productive specialists, and societies had to value artistic expression enough to invest significant resources in creating and preserving art. This suggests social complexity and cultural sophistication far beyond traditional models of Paleolithic society. Archaeological evidence suggests that Paleolithic societies included specialized roles for artists, musicians, and other cultural practitioners. The time investment required for creating masterful artwork suggests that some individuals were released from subsistence activities to focus on artistic production. The quality and consistency of artwork across sites suggests formal training systems and cultural institutions. Astronomical knowledge appears encoded in Paleolithic art, with some cave paintings apparently representing star patterns, lunar cycles, and seasonal astronomical events. If confirmed, this would demonstrate that systematic astronomical observation began tens of thousands of years earlier than previously thought, laying foundations for the sophisticated astronomical traditions found in later civilizations. Recent archaeoastronomical studies of cave art have identified potential stellar and planetary representations in Paleolithic artwork. Some geometric patterns may represent lunar calendars or seasonal astronomical events. The positioning of certain artworks in caves appears to align with astronomical observations, suggesting that caves served as primitive observatories as well as art galleries. The geographic distribution of artistic traditions reveals extensive cultural contact and knowledge exchange among Paleolithic populations. Similar artistic techniques, symbolic systems, and technological innovations appear across vast distances, suggesting communication networks and cultural transmission that connected populations across continents. DNA analysis of Paleolithic populations has confirmed extensive gene flow between distant groups, supporting archaeological evidence of cultural contact. Similar artistic styles and techniques appearing across thousands of miles suggest that knowledge and techniques were actively shared through trade networks, migration, and cultural exchange. Recent advances in dating techniques are revealing that artistic traditions began much earlier than previously recognized. Evidence of pigment use for body decoration and symbolic purposes now extends back over 200,000 years in Africa, suggesting that symbolic behavior was fundamental to human cognition from very early periods. New dating methods using improved radiocarbon techniques and luminescence dating are pushing back the timeline of symbolic behavior. Evidence of ochre processing for symbolic purposes appears much earlier than previously thought, suggesting that the capacity for abstract thinking developed alongside modern human anatomy. The preservation conditions that allowed Paleolithic art to survive are exceptional, raising questions about how much artistic production has been lost to time. If the cave paintings we can see today represent only a tiny fraction of Paleolithic artistic output, the true scale of prehistoric artistic achievement may have been enormous. Taphonomic studies suggest that preservation of Paleolithic art required very specific environmental conditions. The cave paintings that survived represent a tiny fraction of total artistic production, most of which was created on perishable materials or in locations where preservation was impossible. This suggests that Paleolithic artistic activity was far more extensive than the surviving record indicates. Modern neuroscience research is revealing the cognitive mechanisms that enabled Paleolithic artistic achievement. The same neural networks that process visual art today were present in Paleolithic humans, suggesting that artistic capacity was an integral part of human cognitive evolution rather than a late cultural development. Brain imaging studies of modern artists show that creating representational art activates the same neural networks in all humans, suggesting that artistic capability is a fundamental aspect of human cognition. The sophistication of Paleolithic art demonstrates that these neural systems were fully functional tens of thousands of years ago. The recognition of Paleolithic artistic sophistication is transforming our understanding of human cognitive evolution. Rather than a gradual development from simple to complex thinking, the evidence suggests that sophisticated cognitive capabilities emerged relatively rapidly and remained stable over tens of thousands of years. The artistic achievements of Paleolithic humans demonstrate that creativity, symbolic thinking, and aesthetic appreciation were fundamental aspects of human nature from very early periods. These capabilities provided the cognitive foundations for all later human achievements, from the development of language and religion to the creation of complex civilizations and technological systems. Chapter 6. The Aboriginal Engineers. In the remote wilderness of northern Australia, among landscapes that seem untouched by human hands, lie the remnants of engineering projects that predate the pyramids of Egypt by 30,000 years. The Aboriginal Australians, whose continuous cultural traditions stretch back over 65,000 years, created some of humanity's oldest known structures and developed technologies that sustained complex societies long before agriculture was invented. You're standing beside the Brewarina fish traps in New South Wales, looking at what may be the world's oldest human-made structures still in use. These elaborate stone weirs, stretching across the Barwon River for over half a mile, have been continuously maintained and operated by Aboriginal communities for an estimated 40,000 years. The engineering sophistication required to design and build these structures challenges every assumption about Stone Age technological capabilities. The fish traps aren't simple barriers. They re-sophisticated hydraulic engineering systems that work with the river as natural flow to create efficient fish harvesting facilities. Hundreds of precisely placed stones create a complex network of channels, pools, and traps that funnel fish into holding areas where they can be easily caught. The system works during both high and low water conditions, demonstrating intimate understanding of river hydrology and fish behavior. But the Brewarina fish traps are just one example of Aboriginal engineering sophistication. Across Australia, archaeologists have identified hundreds of similar structures. Fish traps, eel farming systems, and water management projects that required coordinated labor and advanced planning. These weren't built by small nomadic bands. They were major infrastructure projects that supported large, semi-permanent populations. The complexity of Aboriginal aquaculture becomes clearer when you examine the Budgebim landscape in Victoria. Here, Aboriginal engineers created an elaborate system of channels, weirs, and holding ponds that turned natural wetlands into massive eel farms. The system covered over 100 square kilometers and could produce enough food to support thousands of people year-round. Recent research suggests this aquaculture system operated continuously for over 6,000 years. The engineering knowledge required for these projects was extraordinary. Aboriginal builders understood water flow dynamics, fish migration patterns, seasonal flooding cycles, and ecosystem management. They developed techniques for moving massive stones without metal tools, created watertight seals using natural materials, and designed systems that required minimal maintenance while operating for millennia. Archaeological evidence reveals the social complexity these engineering projects supported. Large semi-permanent villages developed around major fish trap complexes, with populations far exceeding what traditional models of hunter-gatherer societies should have supported. These weren't temporary camps. They were substantial settlements with elaborate housing, ceremonial areas, and specialized activity zones. The most remarkable discovery is evidence of what appears to be Australia's first urban planning. At Budgebim, archaeologists have identified the remains of stone house foundations, arranged in organized patterns around the eel farming infrastructure. These weren't random campsites, but planned communities designed to integrate residential areas with food production facilities. Recent dating of Aboriginal sites has pushed back the timeline of human achievement even further. At Mungo Lake in New South Wales, archaeologists discovered evidence of ritual ochre burial dating to 42,000 years ago, the world's oldest known ceremonial burial. The sophisticated mortuary practices, including the use of ochre pigments and complex body positioning, suggest spiritual beliefs and social customs of remarkable complexity. The technological innovations developed by Aboriginal Australians were far ahead of their time. They invented the boomerang, a sophisticated aerodynamic tool that demonstrates advanced understanding of physics and material science. They developed fire stick farming, using controlled burning to manage entire ecosystems and maximize food production. These techniques created what early European explorers described as park-like landscapes that were actually carefully managed agricultural systems. Aboriginal astronomical knowledge rivals that of any ancient civilization. They developed detailed star maps that served as seasonal calendars, navigation aids, and repositories of cultural knowledge. The Wardaman people of the Northern Territory created oral traditions that accurately describe the behavior of variable stars, demonstrating astronomical observations of remarkable precision maintained over thousands of years. Rock art traditions provide another window into Aboriginal sophistication. The Kimberley region contains rock art galleries with over 100,000 individual paintings, some dating back 65,000 years. These aren't primitive cave paintings. They're sophisticated artistic traditions that maintain consistent styles and techniques across millennia. The artistic complexity and cultural continuity represent one of humanity's longest-running artistic traditions. The social organization required to maintain these achievements was equally impressive. Aboriginal societies developed complex systems of law, governance, and resource management that sustained populations across an entire continent for tens of thousands of years. Their achievement in maintaining cultural continuity and environmental sustainability over such vast timescales has no parallel in human history. Trade networks connected Aboriginal groups across thousands of miles. Specialized stone tools from Central Australia have been found on the coast. Pearl shells from the northwest traveled to the southeast. Ochre from specific locations was traded across the continent. These networks required sophisticated organization and maintained peaceful relationships among diverse groups across vast distances. The sustainability of Aboriginal systems is perhaps their most remarkable achievement. For over 65,000 years, Aboriginal Australians maintained complex societies without depleting resources or causing environmental collapse. Their techniques for ecosystem management actually increased biodiversity and environmental productivity, a remarkable contrast to the environmental destruction caused by more recent advanced civilizations. Recent archaeological discoveries continue to reveal the true sophistication of Aboriginal achievements. Ground-penetrating radar has identified extensive networks of ancient fish traps previously unknown to science. Underwater archaeology is revealing stone tool manufacturing sites that were submerged when sea levels rose after the last ice age, suggesting coastal settlements of remarkable antiquity. The oral traditions maintained by Aboriginal cultures preserve knowledge stretching back tens of thousands of years. Stories accurately describe landscapes that were drowned when sea levels rose 10,000 years ago. Traditions maintain detailed knowledge of extinct animals and ancient climate conditions. This represents the longest continuous knowledge tradition in human history. Modern recognition of Aboriginal achievements is transforming archaeology and challenging assumptions about prehistoric human capabilities. The engineering sophistication, social complexity, and environmental management demonstrated by Aboriginal Australians proves that primitive societies were anything but primitive. Their achievements in creating sustainable, long-term civilizations offer lessons that remain relevant today. UNESCO recognition of sites like Bujbim as World Heritage Areas acknowledges the global significance of Aboriginal engineering achievements. These sites are being studied by modern engineers and environmental managers seeking to understand sustainable practices that worked successfully for millennia. The Aboriginal Australian achievement represents humanity's longest-running experiment in sustainable civilization. Their success in maintaining complex societies, sophisticated technologies, and rich cultural traditions for over 65,000 years demonstrates alternative models of human development that challenge assumptions about progress and complexity. Chapter 7. The Megalith Builders of Europe. Across the European landscape, from the misty moors of Scotland to the sun-baked hills of Malta, stands silent testimony to a lost civilization that transformed the continent thousands of years before the rise of Greece or Rome. The megalith builders of Neolithic Europe created monuments that required organizational skills, technological knowledge, and artistic vision that wasn't supposed to exist in prehistoric times. You're standing in the shadow of Newgrange in Ireland, looking up at a monument that predates Stonehenge by 500 years and the Great Pyramid of Egypt by 600 years. This massive structure, built around 3200 BCE, isn't just impressive for its size. It is a sophisticated astronomical instrument that demonstrates mathematical knowledge and engineering skills that challenge everything we thought we knew about Neolithic Europeans. The scale of megalithic construction across Europe is staggering. Over 35,000 megalithic monuments have been identified, from massive stone circles to elaborate burial chambers, stretching from Scotland to southern Spain and from Ireland to Scandinavia. These monuments represent one of humanity's first pan-continental cultural movements, requiring coordination and knowledge sharing across vast distances. Newgrange itself is an engineering marvel that required the coordinated labor of hundreds of workers over decades. The monument consists of over 200,000 tons of stone, including massive curbstones decorated with intricate spiral designs. The most remarkable feature is the roof box, a carefully positioned opening that allows sunlight to penetrate the interior chamber only during the winter solstice sunrise. This precision requires advanced astronomical knowledge and mathematical calculation. The construction techniques used at Newgrange were extraordinarily sophisticated. The corbelled roof, built without mortar, has remained watertight for over 5,000 years. The builders developed techniques for moving stones weighing up to 10 tons without wheeled vehicles, using only wooden rollers, rope, and human labor. The precision fitting of stones in the monument's perfect preservation demonstrate mastery of engineering techniques that wouldn't be surpassed for thousands of years. But Newgrange is just one example of megalithic sophistication. The stone circles of Britain and Ireland demonstrate even more complex astronomical alignments. The temple complexes of Malta represent another pinnacle of megalithic achievement. Sites like Kagar Kim and Nasdra, built between 3,600 and 2,500 BCE, are among the world's oldest freestanding stone buildings. These temples feature sophisticated architectural elements, trilithons, apses, and decorative carvings that demonstrate advanced stoneworking techniques and artistic sensibilities. The Malta temples reveal remarkable astronomical sophistication. The Nasdra temple complex aligns with equinoxes and solstices, with doorways positioned to frame the rising sun at key seasonal moments. The builders understood both solar and stellar movements well enough to incorporate multiple astronomical alignments into single structures, a level of complexity that required generations of careful observation and mathematical planning. Recent archaeological work has revealed the true scale of megalithic society. Excavations around major monuments show evidence of large permanent settlements with specialized craftspeople, extensive trade networks, and sophisticated agricultural systems. These weren't built by simple farming communities. They were the products of complex societies with advanced organizational capabilities. The social organization required for megalithic construction was unprecedented. Moving and positioning the massive trilithons at Stonehenge required coordinated teams of over 200 people working with sophisticated lifting and transportation equipment. The planning and execution of such projects implies leadership structures, specialized knowledge, and resource management capabilities that rival those of later civilizations. The artistic achievements of megalithic builders were equally impressive. The carved spirals, diamonds, and geometric patterns found at sites like Newgrange represent some of Europe's earliest monumental art. These designs required sophisticated planning, specialized tools, and artistic vision that created cohesive decorative programs across entire monuments. Megalithic builders developed advanced quarrying and stoneworking techniques. They learned to split massive blocks along natural fracture lines, shape stones to precise specifications, and transport multi-ton blocks across hundreds of miles. The blue stones of Stonehenge were quarried in Wales and transported over 150 miles to Salisbury Plain, a logistical achievement that required advanced planning and organizational capabilities. The monuments served multiple functions beyond astronomy and burial. Many sites show evidence of large gatherings, feasting, and ceremonial activities. Stonehenge could accommodate thousands of people during major ceremonies, suggesting it served as a religious center for populations across southern Britain. The scale of gathering areas implies social organization that united scattered communities across vast regions. Trade networks connected megalithic communities across Europe and beyond. Jade axes from the Alps have been found in Britain. Amber from the Baltic appears in tombs across Western Europe. Copper and gold objects demonstrate metallurgical knowledge and trade connections spanning the continent. These networks required sophisticated organization and maintained peaceful relationships among diverse groups. The decline of megalithic civilization remains mysterious. Around 2000 BCE, monument construction largely ceased across Europe. Climate change may have disrupted the agricultural system supporting large populations. The arrival of Bronze Age cultures with different values and social organization may have replaced megalithic traditions. Whatever the cause, Europe's first pan-continental civilization disappeared, leaving only their monuments as testimony to their achievements. Recent research using advanced dating techniques has revealed that megalithic construction spread across Europe much faster than previously thought. The tradition may have originated in Brittany around 4500 BCE and spread to Britain, Ireland, and Scandinavia within just a few centuries. This rapid diffusion suggests active communication and knowledge sharing among Neolithic communities. The astronomical alignments found in megalithic monuments demonstrate knowledge that rivals that of later civilizations. The builders understood precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that changes star positions over thousands of years. They incorporated multiple astronomical cycles into their monuments, creating structures that served as both temples and sophisticated scientific instruments. Modern archaeology continues to reveal new aspects of megalithic sophistication. Ground-penetrating radar has identified previously unknown stone circles and burial chambers. Computer modeling of astronomical alignments is revealing new layers of complexity in monument design. Each discovery adds to our appreciation of these remarkable prehistoric achievements. The legacy of megalithic builders extends far beyond their monuments. They established the first pan-European cultural tradition, demonstrated humanity's earliest monumental architecture, and created some of our oldest scientific instruments. Their achievement in organizing continental-scale monument building 5,000 years ago established precedents for cooperation and knowledge sharing that would influence European development for millennia. The megalithic builders remind us that sophisticated civilization doesn't require writing, metals, or cities. Their achievements in astronomy, engineering, and social organization demonstrate that human ingenuity and organizational capability reached remarkable heights thousands of years before the civilizations we traditionally study in history classes. Chapter 8. The Maritime Pioneers. Long before Phoenicians were credited as the ancient world's greatest sailors, prehistoric mariners were crossing vast ocean distances in craft that shouldn't have been capable of such journeys. The story of humanity's relationship with the sea begins much earlier than traditionally believed, with evidence of sophisticated maritime technology and navigation skills that predate known civilizations by tens of thousands of years. You're looking across the choppy waters between Australia and New Guinea, trying to imagine the courage and skill required for the first ocean crossing in human history. Around 65,000 years ago, early humans made the first sea journey that required deliberate navigation across open water. The distance of at least 90 kilometers of deep ocean could only be crossed by people with advanced boat-building skills and sophisticated navigation knowledge. This wasn't a lucky accident or desperate flight from danger. Archaeological evidence suggests that early humans crossed between Australia and New Guinea repeatedly, establishing permanent populations and maintaining contact between communities separated by dangerous waters. They understood tides, currents, seasonal weather patterns, and the behavior of seabirds that could guide them to land beyond the horizon. The boats themselves were remarkable achievements that required sophisticated understanding of material science and marine engineering. Recent experimental archaeology has demonstrated that early humans could build watercraft capable of ocean voyages using only stone tools and natural materials. Bamboo rafts lashed together with plant fibers could carry multiple people and supplies across long distances. These weren't crude logs tied together. They were sophisticated vessels, designed by people who understood maritime engineering principles. Recent reconstruction experiments using prehistoric technology have proven the feasibility of early ocean crossings. Teams building replica boats with stone tools and natural materials have successfully completed voyages of hundreds of miles, demonstrating that early maritime achievements were not only possible, but repeatable with appropriate knowledge and skills. These experiments have revealed the sophisticated understanding of buoyancy, stability, and hydrodynamics required for successful ocean voyaging. The construction techniques used by prehistoric boat builders demonstrate remarkable innovation and adaptation to marine environments. They developed flexible lashing systems using plant fibers that allowed boats to flex with ocean swells rather than breaking apart. They understood how to select and prepare materials for maximum durability in saltwater conditions. They created waterproof sealing compounds from tree resins and other natural materials that could withstand extended ocean exposure. But the Australian crossing was just the beginning. By 45,000 years ago, humans had reached islands throughout Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific, including remote islands that required multiple ocean crossings to reach. The settlement of the Solomon Islands, New Ireland, and other distant Pacific islands required navigation skills that wouldn't be matched by later civilizations for thousands of years. The colonization of remote Pacific islands reveals extraordinary maritime capabilities that challenge assumptions about prehistoric human achievements. Reaching islands like New Ireland required crossing over 180 kilometers of open ocean, carrying enough people and supplies to establish permanent colonies. Archaeological evidence shows that these crossings were deliberate colonization efforts that brought complete toolkits, domestic animals, and sufficient genetic diversity to establish sustainable populations. Recent archaeological discoveries in the Pacific have revealed evidence of sophisticated navigation technologies, much earlier than previously recognized. Stone tools designed specifically for boat construction have been found on islands dating back over 40,000 years. These tools demonstrate specialized knowledge of woodworking techniques adapted specifically to maritime applications. The most remarkable early maritime achievement was the settlement of the Mediterranean islands. By 10,000 BCE, humans had reached Cyprus, Corsica, Sardinia, and other islands using boats capable of carrying entire families with their livestock and supplies. These weren't short coastal hops. They were deliberate colonization voyages that required planning, navigation skills, and sophisticated watercraft. The colonization of Cyprus represents a particularly impressive achievement in early maritime technology. The island lies 70 kilometers from the nearest mainland, requiring substantial boats capable of carrying multiple families along with domestic animals and sufficient supplies to establish permanent settlements. Archaeological evidence shows that the first colonists brought pigs, cattle, and sheep, indicating boats large enough to transport live animals across open water. Recent underwater archaeology has revealed evidence of advanced boat building much earlier than previously thought. Submerged sites off the coasts of Europe and Asia contain sophisticated stone tools designed specifically for woodworking and boat construction. These tools, dating back over 40,000 years, suggest that early humans were building advanced watercraft long before the end of the last ice age. The underwater archaeological sites reveal workshops where specialized marine tools were manufactured. These sites contain evidence of systematic production of boat-building implements, adzes for shaping hulls, boring tools for creating lashing holes, and specialized scrapers for preparing wood surfaces. The standardization of these tools suggests formal training systems and established boat-building traditions that were passed down through generations. The navigation techniques developed by prehistoric mariners were extraordinarily sophisticated and required generations of careful observation and knowledge accumulation. They learned to read wave patterns created by distant islands, interpret cloud formations that indicated land beyond the horizon, and follow bird migration routes that led to seasonal feeding grounds. They understood how wind patterns changed with seasons and weather systems, enabling them to predict favorable conditions for long voyages. Recent ethnographic studies of traditional Pacific navigation have revealed the complexity of knowledge systems required for successful ocean voyaging. Master navigators memorized detailed information about star positions, ocean swells, weather patterns, and seasonal phenomena that takes decades to learn fully. The precision of these traditional systems suggests that similar knowledge was required for successful prehistoric voyaging. Evidence of early transoceanic contact is revolutionizing our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities. Genetic studies suggest that ancient humans may have crossed the Pacific Ocean much earlier than traditionally believed, possibly reaching the Americas tens of thousands of years earlier than the accepted timeline. While controversial, this evidence suggests maritime capabilities far exceeding anything in the archaeological record. The genetic evidence for early transoceanic contact includes shared DNA, markers between widely separated populations, and linguistic similarities that suggest ancient connections. Some researchers propose that maritime peoples may have established trading networks that connected populations across vast ocean distances, enabling gene flow and cultural exchange between continents separated by thousands of miles of open water. The development of advanced boat building required sophisticated understanding of materials, science that enabled prehistoric builders to create vessels capable of extended ocean voyages. Early builders learned to select appropriate woods based on their flexibility, durability, and resistance to marine borers. They developed waterproof sealants from tree resins, created flexible lashing techniques that allowed boats to flex with ocean swells, and understood hull design principles that maximize stability and cargo capacity while minimizing weight and materials. Maritime trade networks developed much earlier than land-based commerce and connected distant communities across substantial water barriers. Obsidian from Mediterranean volcanic islands appears in mainland sites dating to 15,000 years ago, proving regular sea trade across substantial distances. These early traders understood seasonal weather patterns, maintained relationships with distant communities, and developed standardized exchange systems that operated for thousands of years. The Obsidian trade networks reveal sophisticated understanding of maritime logistics and seasonal planning. Traders had to coordinate extraction at volcanic sources, organize transportation across dangerous waters, and maintain distribution systems that served communities hundreds of miles away. The consistency of obsidian types found at different sites suggests standardized trading relationships that operated reliably over extended periods. The social organization required for early maritime activities was remarkable and demonstrates complex societies capable of supporting specialized maritime occupations. Ocean voyages required coordinated crews with specialized skills navigators, boat builders, and experienced sailors who could handle emergencies at sea. The knowledge required for successful voyaging was complex and specialized, requiring educational systems to train new generations of maritime experts. Archaeological evidence from coastal settlements reveals the social complexity of early maritime societies. These communities featured specialized facilities for boat construction and maintenance, processing areas for marine resources, and storage systems designed for preserved seafood. They developed distinct cultural traditions centered around their maritime lifestyle and maintained trading relationships with inland communities. Coastal settlements developed unique characteristics that set them apart from inland communities and demonstrate adaptation to maritime environments. They featured specialized facilities for boat construction and maintenance, processing areas for marine resources, and storage systems designed for preserved seafood. These communities developed distinct cultural traditions centered around their maritime lifestyle. The environmental knowledge possessed by early mariners was encyclopedic and essential for survival during extended ocean voyages. They understood seasonal fish migrations, knew the locations of freshwater sources on remote islands, and could predict weather patterns from subtle environmental cues. This knowledge was essential for survival during long voyages and successful colonization of new territories. Recent studies of traditional maritime cultures have revealed the complexity of environmental knowledge required for successful ocean voyaging. Master mariners maintain detailed mental maps of ocean conditions, understand the behavior of marine wildlife that indicates weather changes, and can navigate using subtle environmental cues that are invisible to untrained observers. Archaeological evidence suggests that early maritime peoples developed sophisticated fishing technologies thousands of years before agriculture. Deep-sea fishing hooks, multi-part harpoons, and elaborate fish traps demonstrate technological innovation specifically adapted to marine environments. These tools required specialized manufacturing techniques and represented significant investments in maritime-specific technology. The fishing technologies developed by early maritime peoples were remarkably sophisticated and demonstrate adaptation to specific marine environments. Different hook designs were optimized for different fish species. Harpoons were engineered for different hunting conditions, and fish traps were designed to work with specific tidal and current patterns. This specialization suggests detailed understanding of marine ecosystems and fish behavior. The impact of early maritime achievements on human development was profound and enabled the global spread of human populations to previously unreachable territories. Ocean crossings allowed human populations to spread to previously unreachable territories, leading to genetic and cultural diversification. Maritime communities developed distinct social organizations, technological traditions, and environmental relationships that influenced later civilizations. Recent discoveries continue to push back the timeline of maritime achievement and reveal capabilities that exceed traditional assumptions about prehistoric seafaring. Underwater archaeological sites revealed by changing sea levels contain evidence of sophisticated boat building and navigation technologies dating back over 50,000 years. These discoveries suggest that advanced maritime capabilities developed much earlier and spread more widely than previously recognized. The legacy of prehistoric maritime pioneers extends far beyond their navigational achievements and established foundations for all later maritime civilizations. They established the first global transportation networks, demonstrated humanity's ability to adapt to marine environments, and proved that early humans possessed technological and organizational capabilities far exceeding traditional assumptions about prehistoric societies. Modern reconstruction experiments have confirmed the feasibility of early ocean crossings using prehistoric technology and demonstrate that early maritime achievements were remarkable but achievable. Teams using replica boats built with stone tools and natural materials have successfully completed voyages of hundreds of miles, demonstrating that early maritime achievements were not only possible, but repeatable with appropriate knowledge and skills. The story of humanity's relationship with the sea begins not with historical civilizations, but with prehistoric pioneers who developed sophisticated maritime technologies tens of thousands of years ago. Their achievements in navigation, boat building, and ocean exploration established foundations for later maritime civilizations and demonstrated human adaptability and ingenuity in overcoming seemingly impossible challenges. These early mariners remind us that human technological capability and exploratory drive developed much earlier than traditionally believed. Their success in crossing vast ocean distances and establishing permanent settlements on remote islands proves that our ancestors possessed sophisticated knowledge, advanced planning abilities, and remarkable courage in facing the unknown dangers of the open sea. Chapter 9. The first farmers in the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, where wild grasses still wave in the wind as they have for millennia, humanity made one of its most consequential discoveries. Around 11,000 years ago, in the region archaeologists call the Fertile Crescent, our ancestors began the deliberate cultivation of plants and domestication of animals, launching the agricultural revolution that would transform human society forever. You're walking through fields near the ancient site of Kauno, where some of the world's earliest evidence of agriculture has been discovered. The wild ancestors of modern wheat and barley still grow here naturally, and you can almost imagine the moment when someone first noticed that scattered seeds produced new plants, leading to humanity's first tentative steps toward farming. The transition from hunting and gathering to agriculture wasn't sudden. It was a gradual process that unfolded over thousands of years across multiple locations. But the evidence suggests that this revolution began much earlier and in more places than traditionally believed. Recent discoveries are pushing back the timeline of agricultural development and revealing that early farmers were far more sophisticated than previously imagined. At Göbekli Tepe, the massive temple complex we explored earlier, archaeologists have found evidence that challenges the traditional sequence of human development. The site's builders were supposedly hunter-gatherers. Yet recent excavations have revealed remains of early domesticated wheat varieties. This suggests that the drive to create permanent religious centers may have actually stimulated agricultural development. rather than agriculture enabling monumental architecture. The earliest evidence of deliberate plant cultivation comes from sites like Abu Huraira in Syria, where archaeologists have found grains of domesticated rye dating to 13,000 years ago. These early farmers didn't just collect wild seeds, they were selectively breeding plants to enhance desirable characteristics. The size and shape of early cultivated grains show clear signs of human selection for larger seeds and easier harvesting. But agriculture didn't develop in isolation. Archaeological evidence reveals that early farming communities were connected through extensive trade networks that spread agricultural knowledge and crop varieties across vast distances. Domesticated wheat from the Fertile Crescent appears in Greece by 9,000 years ago, in Egypt by 8,000 years ago, and in Britain by 6,000 years ago. This rapid spread suggests active knowledge sharing among early farming communities. The sophistication of early agricultural techniques is remarkable. At sites like Jurf el Ammar in Syria, archaeologists have found evidence of crop rotation systems, irrigation channels, and storage facilities designed to preserve surplus grain for multiple years. These weren't simple experiments with plant cultivation. They were sophisticated agricultural systems that could support large permanent populations. Animal domestication occurred simultaneously with plant cultivation, creating integrated agricultural systems that maximize productivity. The earliest evidence of domesticated dogs appears around 15,000 years ago, followed by sheep and goats around 11,000 years ago, and cattle and pigs by 10,000 years ago. Early farmers understood that animals provided not just meat, but also milk, wool, leather, and labor. Recent genetic studies of domesticated crops reveal the complexity of early agricultural development. Modern wheat, for example, is the result of hybridization between 3 different wild grass species, a process that required sophisticated understanding of plant breeding and multiple generations of careful selection. Early farmers weren't just gathering seeds, they were creating entirely new species through selective breeding. The environmental impact of early agriculture was profound and immediate. Pollen analysis from ancient lake sediments shows dramatic changes in vegetation patterns as forests were cleared for farming. Early farmers learned to manage entire landscapes, using fire to clear land, redirecting water for irrigation, and creating the first human-dominated ecosystems. Storage technology was crucial for agricultural success and required significant innovation. Early farmers developed sophisticated techniques for preserving grain, including underground storage pits lined with stone, ceramic containers that kept grain dry and pest-free, and fermentation processes that could preserve food for months or years. These technologies enabled the surplus production that supported specialized crafts in larger communities. The social changes brought by agriculture were revolutionary. Permanent settlements allowed populations to grow beyond the limits sustainable by hunting and gathering. Surplus food production enabled some people to specialize in crafts, religious activities, or leadership roles. Property ownership concepts developed as people invested labor in improving specific plots of land. Different regions developed distinct agricultural traditions adapted to local conditions. In China, rice cultivation began around 9,000 years ago, along the Yangtze River, requiring different techniques than Middle Eastern grain farming. In the Americas, indigenous peoples domesticated corn, beans, and squash, creating an integrated agricultural system that provided complete nutrition. In New Guinea, early farmers developed sophisticated banana and taro cultivation systems that supported dense populations in challenging tropical environments. The development of agricultural tools represents significant technological innovation. Early farmers created specialized implements, grinding stones for processing grain, sickles for harvesting, hoes for cultivation, and plows for soil preparation. These tools required specialized knowledge of materials, manufacturing techniques, and optimal design for specific tasks. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed that early agricultural communities were far more socially complex than traditionally believed. Excavations at Çatalhöyük show evidence of specialized craft production, long-distance trade relationships, and sophisticated artistic traditions, all supported by agricultural surplus. These early farming communities weren't simple peasant villages. They were complex societies with diverse economic activities. The spread of agriculture wasn't uniform or always voluntary. Genetic studies suggest that farming communities often displaced or absorbed hunter-gatherer populations, fundamentally changing the demographic structure of entire continents. The advantages of agricultural food production, higher population densities, surplus accumulation, and specialized tools gave farming societies competitive advantages in conflicts with hunter-gatherer groups. Climate change played a crucial role in agricultural development. The end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, created more stable climate conditions that made agriculture feasible. But early farmers also had to adapt to continued climate variations, developing drought-resistant crops and flexible farming strategies that could cope with environmental uncertainty. The psychological and cultural changes brought by agriculture were as significant as the technological ones. Farming required long-term planning, delayed gratification, and acceptance of hard physical labor in exchange for future benefits. These mental shifts fundamentally changed human society and created the foundations for later civilizational development. Modern archaeological techniques continue to reveal new insights about early agriculture. Microscopic analysis of ancient plant remains, genetic studies of crop evolution, and isotope analysis of human bones are providing detailed pictures of when, where, and how agriculture developed. Each discovery adds to our understanding of this crucial transition in human history. The agricultural revolution initiated by these early farmers created the foundation for all subsequent human civilization. The ability to produce surplus food, enable population growth, specialization, technological development, and the creation of complex societies. Every city, every monument, every technological achievement in human history ultimately depends on the agricultural discoveries made by these pioneering farmers over 10,000 years ago. Chapter 10. The climate engineers across the vast landscapes of prehistoric North America. A sophisticated environmental management system was transforming entire continents through controlled fire. Long before Europeans arrived with their assumptions about wilderness, indigenous peoples had been actively managing ecosystems for over 13,000 years, creating what early explorers described as park-like landscapes that were actually carefully engineered agricultural and ecological systems. You're standing in what would have been a carefully maintained oak savanna in pre-Columbian California, trying to imagine the landscape as it existed under indigenous management. Instead of dense, impenetrable forests, you would have seen open woodlands with widely spaced mature trees, grassy understories perfect for hunting, and diverse plant communities that provided food, medicine, and materials for thousands of different purposes. The technology behind this transformation was fire, but not random burning. Indigenous peoples developed sophisticated fire management systems that required intimate knowledge of plant ecology, weather patterns, soil conditions, and animal behavior. They understood that different plants responded to fire in different ways, and that the timing, intensity, and frequency of burns could be manipulated to achieve specific ecological outcomes. Recent research has revealed the true scale of indigenous environmental management. Across North America, from the Pacific Northwest to the eastern woodlands, indigenous peoples maintained complex fire regimes that managed entire regions. These weren't occasional accidental burns. They were systematic landscape management programs that operated continuously for thousands of years. The techniques varied by region and ecosystem, but the underlying principles were remarkably consistent. In California, indigenous peoples used frequent low-intensity burns to maintain oak woodlands and grasslands. In the Great Plains, they used extensive grass fires to maintain prairie ecosystems and concentrate bison herds. In the eastern forests, they created forest openings and maintained edge habitats that maximize biodiversity and resource availability. The sophistication of indigenous fire management becomes clear when you examine specific techniques. Practitioners understood that morning burns behaved differently than afternoon fires, that humidity levels affected burn intensity, and that wind patterns determined fire spread. They developed tools for controlling fire direction, techniques for creating fire breaks, and methods for ensuring burns achieved desired intensity levels. The ecological results were extraordinary. Indigenous fire management increased biodiversity by creating mosaic landscapes with diverse habitat types. It enhanced the productivity of useful plants by reducing competition and providing optimal growing conditions. It maintained open landscapes that supported large game animals while reducing the risk of catastrophic wildfires. Archaeological evidence demonstrates that indigenous fire management began soon after humans arrived in the Americas. Charcoal layers in lake sediments show dramatic changes in fire frequency starting around 13,000 years ago, coinciding with the arrival of human populations. These fire signatures continue consistently until European colonization disrupted traditional management practices. The integration of fire management with other indigenous technologies created sophisticated agricultural systems in the Pacific Northwest. Indigenous peoples used controlled burning to maintain camas meadows, extensive bulb gardens that provided starchy foods equivalent to potato cultivation. These managed landscapes could support dense populations while maintaining ecological stability. The productivity of indigenous managed landscapes was remarkable. Early European observers noted the abundance of game animals, the diversity of useful plants, and the apparent naturalness of landscapes that were actually intensively managed. Indigenous fire management created what ecologists now call cultural landscapes, environments that were simultaneously natural and artificial, wild and cultivated. Different indigenous groups developed specialized burning techniques adapted to specific ecosystems. In the southeastern United States, peoples like the Cherokee used understory burns to maintain chestnut groves and enhance acorn production. In the Great Basin, Paiute and Shoshone peoples used carefully timed burns to increase seed production. In native grass and wildflower communities, the social organization required for large-scale fire management was sophisticated. Burning required coordination among multiple communities, specialized knowledge holders, and careful timing to avoid conflicts with hunting, gathering, or ceremonial activities. Indigenous societies developed complex governance systems that regulated burning practices and resolved conflicts over resource access. The knowledge systems supporting fire management were encyclopedic. Indigenous peoples developed detailed understanding of plant phenology, fire behavior, weather forecasting, and ecosystem dynamics. This knowledge was encoded in oral traditions, ceremonial practices, and seasonal round activities that ensured proper timing of management activities. Indigenous fire management also served important cultural and spiritual functions. Many indigenous societies viewed fire as a gift from spiritual beings that required proper protocols and ceremonies to use safely and effectively. Burning practices were integrated with religious beliefs, seasonal ceremonies, and cultural traditions that reinforce proper environmental relationships. The environmental benefits of Indigenous fire management extended far beyond local areas. Regional fire regimes affected weather patterns, watershed functions, and carbon storage across entire continents. Indigenous management practices helped maintain stable climate conditions and prevented the massive forest fires that now plague. Fire-suppressed landscapes. European colonization disrupted indigenous fire management practices with devastating ecological consequences. Fire suppression policies implemented by colonial governments eliminated the controlled burning that had maintained ecosystem stability for millennia. The result was dramatic changes in vegetation patterns, species composition, and fire behavior. Across most of North America, recent research has documented the ecological collapse that followed the disruption of indigenous fire management. Dense forests replaced open woodlands, invasive species colonized disturbed areas, and fuel accumulation led to catastrophic wildfires far more destructive than anything that occurred under indigenous management. The natural landscapes that Europeans thought they were preserving were actually degraded versions of sophisticated cultural landscapes. Modern fire management agencies are increasingly recognizing the sophistication and effectiveness of indigenous burning practices. Collaboration between indigenous knowledge holders and Western scientists is producing new approaches to fire management that combine traditional techniques with modern tools and technologies. The scale of indigenous environmental management was continental. From the boreal forests of Canada to the deserts of Mexico, indigenous peoples actively managed ecosystems through fire, creating a mosaic of habitats that supported maximum biodiversity and productivity. This represents one of the largest environmental engineering projects in human history. Climate research has revealed that indigenous fire management practices affected regional and global climate patterns. The carbon stored in indigenous managed landscapes, the albedo effects of different vegetation types, and the prevention of massive fires all contributed to climate stability during the Holocene period. The restoration of indigenous fire management practices is now recognized as essential for ecosystem health across North America. Programs that return fire management authority to indigenous communities are producing remarkable ecological recoveries, demonstrating the continued effectiveness of traditional techniques. Indigenous fire management represents perhaps humanity's most successful example of sustainable environmental engineering. For over 13,000 years, indigenous peoples maintained productive, diverse, and stable ecosystems while supporting substantial human populations. Their techniques offer crucial lessons for modern environmental management and climate adaptation. The legacy of indigenous fire management continues to influence North American landscapes today. Even after centuries of suppression, many ecosystems retain characteristics shaped by thousands of years of indigenous management. Understanding this legacy is essential for anyone seeking to understand the true environmental history of the Americas. Modern recognition of indigenous environmental management capabilities is transforming our understanding of prehistoric human environment relationships. Far from being passive inhabitants of pristine wilderness, indigenous peoples were active ecosystem engineers who created and maintained the landscapes that early European explorers mistook for untouched nature. Chapter 11. The Mind Builders in the Depths of Limestone Caves Scattered Across Europe, Africa, and Australia, humanity's earliest artists left behind evidence of cognitive sophistication that challenges every assumption about prehistoric mental capabilities. These weren't crude drawings by primitive minds. They were sophisticated artistic traditions that demonstrate advanced symbolic thinking, cultural transmission, and creative expression that rivals anything produced by later civilizations. You're standing in the Chauvet Cave in southern France, surrounded by art that dates back over 36,000 years. The images surrounding you, charging rhinoceros, leaping horses, prowling lions display artistic techniques that wouldn't be surpassed for thousands of years. The use of natural cave contours to create three-dimensional effects, the sophisticated understanding of perspective and proportion, and the masterful use of shading and color demonstrate artistic abilities that demolish stereotypes about cavemen. But these cave paintings represent just one aspect of a cognitive revolution that began much earlier than previously recognized. Recent archaeological discoveries have pushed back the timeline of symbolic behavior, artistic expression, and abstract thinking by tens of thousands of years. The evidence suggests that modern human cognitive capabilities developed much earlier and more rapidly than traditional models of human evolution predicted. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have discovered evidence of symbolic behavior dating back 100,000 years. Perforated shells used as beads, ochre fragments engraved with geometric patterns, and sophisticated tool-making techniques reveal cognitive capabilities that were thought to be unique to much later periods. These discoveries suggest that the capacity for symbolic thinking, the foundation of all later human achievement, developed much earlier than previously believed. The Blombos cave discoveries represent a watershed moment in understanding human cognitive evolution. The ochre fragments contain abstract geometric patterns that required planning and symbolic thinking to create. The perforated shells were clearly used as personal ornaments, demonstrating aesthetic sensibilities and possibly social signaling systems. Most remarkably, these behaviors appear suddenly in the archaeological record, suggesting rapid cognitive evolution rather than gradual development. Recent analysis of the Blombos materials using advanced microscopy has revealed even greater sophistication than initially recognized. The geometric patterns on ochre fragments follow mathematical principles of symmetry and proportion. The perforation techniques used on shells demonstrate understanding of material science and tool use. The consistency of patterns across multiple artifacts suggests standardized, symbolic systems that could be taught and transmitted. The artistic traditions found in caves across the world weren't isolated phenomena, but part of sophisticated cultural systems that transmitted knowledge across generations. The consistency of artistic techniques across thousands of years suggests formal teaching methods, standardized symbolic systems, and cultural institutions dedicated to preserving and transmitting artistic knowledge. Archaeological evidence from multiple cave art sites reveals the complexity of Paleolithic artistic education systems. Different levels of artistic skill are evident in the same caves, from crude beginners' attempts to masterful finished works. Hand stencils of different sizes suggest that children were introduced to artistic techniques at young ages. The positioning of artwork in caves suggests specific areas were designated for teaching and practice. Recent analysis of Paleolithic art has revealed sophisticated mathematical concepts embedded in seemingly simple designs. The geometric patterns found in caves like Altamira and Lascaux demonstrate understanding of proportion, symmetry, and complex numerical relationships. These aren't random decorations, but carefully planned compositions that required advanced mathematical thinking. Computer analysis of cave art patterns has revealed consistent use of mathematical principles across different sites and time periods. The golden ratio appears in many artistic compositions, suggesting understanding of aesthetic proportions that wouldn't be formalized in Western mathematics for thousands of years. Fractal patterns and geometric progressions demonstrate mathematical thinking that rivals modern artistic understanding. The pigments used by Paleolithic artists required sophisticated chemistry knowledge that demonstrates understanding of material science and chemical processes. Creating stable, vibrant colors from mineral sources involved complex processing techniques, heating ochres to specific temperatures to achieve different hues, mixing pigments with binding agents to ensure longevity, and developing application. Techniques that allowed for fine detail and subtle gradations. Recent chemical analysis of Paleolithic pigments has revealed remarkable sophistication in prehistoric chemistry. Artists have developed recipes for different colors that required precise temperature control and chemical mixing. They understood how different minerals reacted to heat and to predict color changes, resulting from specific processing techniques. Some pigments required multi-step processes that took days to complete. Archaeological evidence suggests that Paleolithic artists used sophisticated tools and techniques that demonstrate advanced technological capabilities. Blowpipes for creating, stenciled handprints, brushes made from animal hair, and engraving tools capable of creating fine detail all required specialized manufacturing knowledge and careful material selection. The toolkits used by Paleolithic artists were remarkably specialized and demonstrate understanding of different artistic applications. Different brush types were created for different painting techniques. Engraving tools were designed for specific line weights and textures. Blowpipes were calibrated for different spray patterns. This specialization suggests artistic traditions with formal tool-making protocols and technical standards. The subject matter of Paleolithic art reveals sophisticated understanding of animal behavior, seasonal patterns, and ecological relationships. The accuracy of animal depictions demonstrates careful observation and detailed knowledge of species that were crucial for survival. But beyond mere documentation, these images show artistic interpretation and creative expression that goes far beyond utilitarian recording. Recent ethological studies of animals depicted in cave art have confirmed the accuracy of Paleolithic observations. Artists captured behavioral details that are difficult to observe in the wild, suggesting extended periods of careful study. They depicted seasonal changes in animal appearance, social behaviors, and ecological relationships that demonstrate deep understanding of natural systems. Recent discoveries have revealed that Paleolithic art wasn't confined to caves, but extended to open-air sites, portable objects, and personal ornamentation. Carved bone and antler objects, decorated tools, and elaborate jewelry demonstrate that artistic expression permeated all aspects of Paleolithic life. This wasn't occasional decoration, but systematic integration of art into daily activities. The portable art objects created by Paleolithic peoples demonstrate remarkable artistic sophistication and suggest that aesthetic expression was central to daily life. Carved figurines show understanding of human and animal anatomy. Decorated tools combine functional and aesthetic considerations. Personal ornaments demonstrate individual artistic expression and possibly social identity markers. The cognitive implications of Paleolithic art are profound and demonstrate capabilities previously thought to be unique to much later periods. Creating representational images requires the ability to form mental representations of absent objects, manipulate abstract concepts, and communicate complex ideas through symbolic systems. These capabilities demonstrate that Paleolithic humans possessed essentially modern cognitive abilities, tens of thousands of years earlier than previously recognized. Neuroscience research has revealed that creating representational art requires activation of multiple brain regions simultaneously. The ability to translate three-dimensional observations into two-dimensional representations involves complex neural processing that demonstrates advanced cognitive capabilities. The consistency and sophistication of Paleolithic art suggests that these neural systems were fully developed tens of thousands of years ago. Musical traditions developed alongside visual arts with archaeological evidence of sophisticated musical instruments dating back over 40,000 years. Bone flutes from German caves demonstrate advanced understanding of acoustics, precise manufacturing techniques, and musical scales that suggest complex musical traditions. These weren't simple noisemakers, but carefully crafted instruments, capable of producing sophisticated melodies. Recent acoustic analysis of Paleolithic musical instruments has revealed remarkable sophistication in prehistoric music making. The bone flutes produce accurate musical scales and can create complex harmonies. Some instruments show evidence of repair and modification, suggesting they were valued possessions maintained over extended periods. The acoustic properties of caves, where instruments were found, suggest they were selected specifically for their sound qualities. The social organization required for maintaining artistic traditions was remarkable and demonstrates cultural complexity that rivals later civilizations. Master artists had to train apprentices, communities had to support non-productive specialists, and societies had to value artistic expression enough to invest significant resources in creating and preserving art. This suggests social complexity and cultural sophistication far beyond traditional models of Paleolithic society. Archaeological evidence suggests that Paleolithic societies included specialized roles for artists, musicians, and other cultural practitioners. The time investment required for creating masterful artwork suggests that some individuals were released from subsistence activities to focus on artistic production. The quality and consistency of artwork across sites suggests formal training systems and cultural institutions. Astronomical knowledge appears encoded in Paleolithic art, with some cave paintings apparently representing star patterns, lunar cycles, and seasonal astronomical events. If confirmed, this would demonstrate that systematic astronomical observation began tens of thousands of years earlier than previously thought, laying foundations for the sophisticated astronomical traditions found in later civilizations. Recent archaeoastronomical studies of cave art have identified potential stellar and planetary representations in Paleolithic artwork. Some geometric patterns may represent lunar calendars or seasonal astronomical events. The positioning of certain artworks in caves appears to align with astronomical observations, suggesting that caves served as primitive observatories as well as art galleries. The geographic distribution of artistic traditions reveals extensive cultural contact and knowledge exchange among Paleolithic populations. Similar artistic techniques, symbolic systems, and technological innovations appear across vast distances, suggesting communication networks and cultural transmission that connected populations across continents. DNA analysis of Paleolithic populations has confirmed extensive gene flow between distant groups, supporting archaeological evidence of cultural contact. Similar artistic styles and techniques appearing across thousands of miles suggest that knowledge and techniques were actively shared through trade networks, migration, and cultural exchange. Recent advances in dating techniques are revealing that artistic traditions began much earlier than previously recognized. Evidence of pigment use for body decoration and symbolic purposes now extends back over 200,000 years in Africa, suggesting that symbolic behavior was fundamental to human cognition from very early periods. New dating methods using improved radiocarbon techniques and luminescence dating are pushing back the timeline of symbolic behavior. Evidence of ochre processing for symbolic purposes appears much earlier than previously thought, suggesting that the capacity for abstract thinking developed alongside modern human anatomy. The preservation conditions that allowed Paleolithic art to survive are exceptional, raising questions about how much artistic production has been lost to time. If the cave paintings we can see today represent only a tiny fraction of Paleolithic artistic output, the true scale of prehistoric artistic achievement may have been enormous. TAPHONOMIC studies suggest that preservation of Paleolithic art required very specific environmental conditions. The cave paintings that survived represent a tiny fraction of total artistic production, most of which was created on perishable materials or in locations where preservation was impossible. This suggests that Paleolithic artistic activity was far more extensive than the surviving record indicates. Modern neuroscience research is revealing the cognitive mechanisms that enabled Paleolithic artistic achievement. The same neural networks that process visual art today were present in Paleolithic humans, suggesting that artistic capacity was an integral part of human cognitive evolution rather than a late cultural development. Brain imaging studies of modern artists show that creating representational art activates the same neural networks in all humans, suggesting that artistic capability is a fundamental aspect of human cognition. The sophistication of Paleolithic art demonstrates that these neural systems were fully functional tens of thousands of years ago. The recognition of Paleolithic artistic sophistication is transforming our understanding of human cognitive evolution. Rather than a gradual development from simple to complex thinking, the evidence suggests that sophisticated cognitive capabilities emerged relatively rapidly and remained stable over tens of thousands of years. The artistic achievements of Paleolithic humans demonstrate that creativity, symbolic thinking, and aesthetic appreciation were fundamental aspects of human nature from very early periods. These capabilities provided the cognitive foundations for all later human achievements, from the development of language and religion to the creation of complex civilizations and technological systems. As we emerge from this journey through humanity's forgotten first civilizations, we must confront an uncomfortable truth. Everything we thought we knew about the development of human society needs fundamental revision. The story of civilization didn't begin 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. It began tens of thousands of years earlier, in places and ways that challenge our most basic assumptions about human capabilities. From the megalithic temples of Göbekli Tepe to the sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, from the astronomical observatories of Neolithic Europe to the environmental engineering of indigenous Americans, we've seen evidence of human achievement that predates traditional civilization by millennia. These weren't primitive societies stumbling toward complexity. They were sophisticated cultures with advanced technologies, complex social organizations, and remarkable achievements that rival anything from later periods. The implications are staggering. If hunter-gatherers could organize the construction of Göbekli Tepe 11,500 years ago, what other assumptions about prehistoric capabilities need revision? If the Indus Valley civilization was creating advanced urban infrastructure 8,000 years ago, how do we reconcile this with traditional timelines of human development? If Aboriginal Australians maintained sustainable civilizations for 65,000 years, what does this say about our definitions of progress and success? These discoveries force us to abandon linear models of human development. Civilization didn't emerge once in one place and spread outward. It emerged multiple times in multiple forms, using multiple pathways of development. Human ingenuity and organizational capability reached remarkable heights repeatedly throughout our species' history, only to be forgotten when climate changes, natural disasters, or social upheavals disrupted continuity. The forgotten civilizations we've explored offer crucial lessons for our modern world. The sustainability demonstrated by Aboriginal Australians, the urban planning innovations of Harappan cities, and the environmental management practices of indigenous Americans provide models that remain relevant today. These ancient achievements remind us that there are many ways to organize human society and that some of our ancestors achieved remarkable success using approaches we've forgotten. Perhaps most importantly, these discoveries humble us. They remind us that human creativity, intelligence, and social cooperation are not recent innovations, but ancient heritage stretching back tens of thousands of years. Our ancestors were not crude primitives, gradually evolving toward our advanced state. They were sophisticated beings, whose achievements in many areas surpassed our own. The next time you hear someone claim that civilization began in Mesopotamia 5,000 years ago, remember the temple builders of Göbekli Tepe, the city planners of Çatalhöyük, the engineers of Jericho, and all the other forgotten pioneers who laid the true foundations of human civilization thousands of years before anyone had ever heard of Sumer. The story of human civilization is far older, far more complex, and far more remarkable than we ever imagined.